TruthSeekah and or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah Podcast.
Gargoyles, psychics, everything's ungodly. Dark's at it.
Streaming live at TruthSeekah.com.
She's not a Christian.
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark's at it stuff.
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm your host, TruthSeekah. This is the TruthSeekah Podcast. I'm excited to be with you guys. We're going to get deep. We've been having some pretty awesome conversations. We've been switching it up a little bit. We've been talking about a lot of different things, a lot of new modalities for many of you. We've been talking about tapping, EFT tapping. We've been talking about healing racial trauma. We've been talking about contact and spiritual abilities and UFOs and so much other stuff. So I love to switch it up, man, and have a variety of information. But you guys know that ufology and spirituality are connected, and they're both very near and dear to my heart and very near and dear to my music as well. For any of you guys who listen to that sort of thing, you know that. So we're going to be talking about that today. It's going to be really good. I'm excited to speak with my guest. I've been watching some of her other interviews and really excited to pick her brain and to connect on the podcast. I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who is supporting my music, supporting the podcast and my book and everything that I bring to the table via Patreon. The best way, the best model to support my work and partner with me is to support there. And you get access to a lot of cool stuff. Literally my entire discography of music, 200 plus songs, all about the stuff we're talking about on this podcast. You guys know I do spiritual, esoteric hip hop and talk about my encounters and try to articulate them in a beautiful way. So if you want to check that out, make sure you go to TruthSeekah.com. and you'll be able to click on the Patreon link that way, and all the updates and everything are there. But I'm gonna give a shout out to some of the latest patrons within the last couple of days or so. Shout out to Colin Rainey for coming on. Thank you, Colin. Jennifer Laverty, Talinge Figueroa, Tammy Anderson, and Frankie Moulton. Franken Moulton. Thank you, Franken, for coming on. You guys mean the world. If you like the support, go check it out. You get access to our Thursday night School of the Mystics. My meditations are there. Our Sunday morning breath work. A bunch of really cool stuff. If you're looking for a community, literally there's a bunch of stuff that you get access to for like $1 or $5 a month. So it's it's affordable for sure. Check it out. We do have a retreat coming up here in Mobile, Alabama with myself and Illuminati Congo. For those of you who want to meet in person and want to go out and do a ceremony with us, we're going to be doing breath work, Kundalini yoga. We're going to do cacao ceremony, shamanic snuff, rape. For those of you who want to do that, we're going to do CE5 under the stars. And we just always have like amazing encounters whenever we do that. And I wish we could do it every week. Like, it would be amazing to be able to do it every week, but spacing it out, it becomes something that's sacred. It becomes something that's holy and something that we all look forward to. So for those of you who want info on that, just go to TruthSeekah.com and you'll be able to check out all the info on that. My pre-order is up. I think tomorrow's the last day to get the pre-order with the autographed copies of White Magic, which is coming out with the sticker pack and all that cool stuff. So if you're listening to this on the podcasting apps, you may be too late. Now, you can still order a physical copy, but it won't be signed and autographed and part of that bundle. So if you want to get it, make sure you go do that today. So I'll be rolling out all the info on that. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into today's conversation. My guest today, ladies and gentlemen, is Meagan Rose Medium. Meagan, welcome to the TruthSeekah Podcast, my friend. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I found out about you and your work through an interview that you did with Miss Elena Danaan, and the beautiful conversations that you had with her. And I found out about her work and reached out to her and was like, I want to pick your brain. I got to have you on my show. So she came on, and then like, this is what podcasts do. And you've had when you were a kid and what you were experiencing that made you think or know that there was something more to life than what we can see, touch, taste, and hear.
Yeah. I mean, I have mediumship ability. So I've had contact with like earthbound spirits or like family members that have crossed over, spirits like that. But I was abducted by malevolent extraterrestrials at ages 5 and 9, which they do on planet Earth very often. They're interested in the slave trade, human trafficking, stuff like that. So at age 5, I was abducted by gray aliens. And, not all gray aliens are bad. Some are mixed with mammal genetics, and they're super loving and super kind. But a lot of the ones who are interested in planet Earth, who've made agreements with the US government and other governments of planet Earth, are here to manipulate, steal children, stuff like that. So specifically, the being, I can describe him, the being that there's little grays that run on artificial intelligence. They're kind of, they're synthetics. They're created by how do I describe them? The ones that are in charge, like the tall grays. But there was a tall gray there who they wanted to get DNA samples from me, and this being is from Orion, and they abducted me. But I was rescued by benevolent extraterrestrials who work for the Galactic Federation at age 5. And those are a lot of the military force from the Galactic Federation are tall, blonde, Nordic, humanoid looking aliens. So those are the ones that rescued me. The same crew that rescued Elena Danaan, Thorhan, her rescuer, and then Valnek is my rescuer's name. And so that was super scary. But the second time I was abducted was even scarier at age 9. I was abducted by reptilians, and the reptilians Mars has been liberated, but they steal children and train them to be super soldiers on Mars and weaponize them. So they were interested in me for that too, but also stealing my DNA as well. But luckily I was rescued again. So good times.
Yeah. Whenever you were abducted, was this something when you were a child, like you were conscious of? Because like a lot of times, like a lot of that stuff's blurry and we can't really make sense of it until later. And like, oh my God, this has been happening the whole time. Was it something that you knew every time it happened, or was there something that would make you forget and those kind of things, and like almost like wiping your memory?
Oh yeah, my rescuer wiped my memory so that I could live like a normal life, because it was really traumatic. So I didn't get my memories back until 2019, where I use the word activated, where they kind of activated me for my work here. And so I got my memories back, and I was taken aboard one of their ships of the Galactic Federation, and they kind of explained to me like current events, what was going to happen. You know, remember, you incarnated onto a slave planet. We have to liberate Earth. And that really triggered my my spiritual awakening. So anyone, it doesn't matter if you're from a different planet or if you're from Earth, we all are equal in that we incarnated onto a planet where we've been manipulated, right? So you still have to transcend all of that trauma and become strong within your own soul. And so that's what really pins down the awakening for me. And when I really was not afraid anymore to open up psychically, because for many years I just kind of shut down or shut that part of my brain off, because when I was abducted by reptilians, this is important to mention, they have, and the Greys too, have the ability, they're invasive, and they have the ability to invade your mind. So it's kind of like it's a telepathic link, but they also use it to mind control you. So it was very scary for me to open up psychically after that, because it felt like a violation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So a lot of people, you know, where I'm from, and you know, we're in the South, right? So there's a lot of Christians and stuff, and when it comes to anything that's taboo or scary or aliens, anything they don't understand, they demonize. And when it comes to invading thoughts and negative entities, a lot of people will try to write off UFOs, all of them, as being demons that are flying around our sky, whether they've created ships or I don't know. There's so many theories or whatever. Have you heard that people would say that, you know, that the aliens are fallen angels, like all of them across the board, and are we dealing with any of that and mixing the two up? Because obviously there are all types of creatures and entities in the spirit realm that come to us and pop up in our bedrooms in the middle of the night, and people say that was an alien, when it's like, no, that was actually a demon in this case. Because there's some nuance there, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I can definitely relate, because I went to Catholic school for like 12 years. So that was definitely like the indoctrination, the programming. If there's anything spiritual, it's demonic, or it's the devil trying to possess you. But yes, I have heard demons are fallen angels. But just like there's people with good intentions and bad intentions, there's also aliens with good intentions and bad intentions. You know, they're people just like us. And so what I know about that is there's lower level astral entities that are natural to Earth, right? And those entities actually work with the malevolent ETs to siphon energy and to increase their power structure. So those beings are actually, a lot of them work with reptilian beings that are connected to the Vatican. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but they're kind of in the power structure. But there's also benevolent extraterrestrials too that come from higher dimensions and that are here to protect us. And obviously a lot of them are members of the Galactic Federation who have intervened in Earth and rescued a lot of children. So yeah, it's really confusing too, like when people are trying to open up and there's so much information. And I think there's a lot of fear. Like I think it's smart to be skeptical, right? But then there's the difference of always living in fear, or being afraid of things that you can't see.
Yeah, I mean, once you have an encounter, like it changes everything. You know, once you see a UFO, and then what happens? I mean, people see UFOs all the time, but sometimes they connect. Sometimes they remember. You know, they watch a movie and they remember, or they watch something that triggers a deep rooted emotion that they've suppressed or forgot about, or have had their memory wiped, you know, as we're talking about. Like one of the things that was interesting when it comes to, you know, ufology and the phenomena and the power that these beings have, whether it's technology, whether they can come into your room and keep you asleep. And, you know, you've heard stories about where the spouse is fast asleep and the person can't wake their spouse up because they're under some kind of trance, even whether it's technology. But one of the interesting things when I started learning about even the power of lavender to go to sleep, there was all these stories back in the day of people seeing UFO ships landing in lavender fields and little grays getting out picking lavender. And it's almost like this powerful compound or extract that they've created to put you asleep by using this lavender that helps you to go to sleep. So I put two and two together of like, okay, a lot of times when these beings show up, people cannot wake up. And then they're spotted in lavender fields picking lavender. My mind just begins to make these links and connections,
That's so interesting. I've never heard of that. That is super cool.
So you think it, I mean, obviously it could be both. They definitely have advanced technology or advanced spiritual abilities as well, right? That they're in tune with. Good and bad as well, right? It goes hand in hand.
Yeah, it can be both, but when it feels like a similar energy. Like it's hard to differentiate between a demonic entity that's from Earth versus a malevolent ET. And so what I do when I pick up on that energy is I completely disconnect from it, because it's not even worth linking your energy or psychically looking in to see who exactly it is, because it doesn't matter. They're just trying to hurt you, but yeah. And I know when I was abducted, the little grays, when they grabbed my arm, as soon as they grabbed my arm, I was paralyzed. So, and I couldn't move, I couldn't scream, I couldn't do anything. And I know, like, for many years, the only memory I had was memories of horrible sleep paralysis and not being able to breathe and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I had phobias.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it was just lavender.
Yeah. Well, you didn't know where, like, even like, that would be an interesting trigger. Somebody smells lavender and they're like, no, I can't, not the lavender. It just brings it back up like, hey, why you don't like lavender? Well, it's a long story.
That is so funny. Yeah.
Why do most people, I interview a lot of healers, a lot of psychics, mediums, and contactees and stuff. Most people start off with negative experiences, negative, malevolent beings, demons even, or even the type of person that they were a negative being that caused harm on the planet and used and abused people. They have an awakening, something happens, and then they have this epiphany and begin to work for the greater good. And hands down across the board, my story, your story, so many people dealing with trauma, it's almost like a rite of passage. It's a trigger of, we know what pain feels like, and we don't want to inflict that or cause that on anyone. What is it about the negative beings or the negative experiences that is almost like a gatekeeper to tapping into our divine purpose and supernatural abilities, and even working with beings? It's usually the bad guys who show up first,
I would totally agree. It's kind of like a rite of passage. And I think part of it too is when you first get into spirituality, you still haven't transcended your own trauma. So you're still resonating at the frequency that they're at. So it's easy. They're the easiest ones to contact because they're at a lower frequency and you're not used to resonating at a higher frequency where the higher density beings are. So that's part of it. So that's why I always tell people to first, before you decide to go make contact, get in touch with yourself and really try and heal yourself first. But that doesn't mean you won't have a negative encounter, because it's also like what we're kind of doing down here is spiritual warfare. So you're always going to have, like, it's like the hero in the movie where there's tons of trials and tribulations. It makes you strong in a way, Yeah,
prepares you, right?
Right. Like even my abductions, it's like, okay, now that I remember, like, it sucks that it happened, but I'm going to tell everyone about who you are. So it's like you can, it's like spiritual alchemy, or you transform it into a strength.
I have an album called Spiritual Alchemy.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh,
there's a comment here from Flying Penguins, and he says it's interesting that you find it kind of hard to tell the difference between the grays, the demons, the reptilians, and the different entities. And he says it sounds like they could be one and the same. He said, I think it's very likely. I know that all things work together. There's a cohesiveness in the universe. I think that the bad, malevolent forces are there for a reason. they serve, again, whether that reason simply being a rite of passage. Pass through this veil to unlock the deeper mysteries, because it takes that trauma to crack open what's been hidden like an egg. You got to hit that egg with a blunt force to crack it or whatever. There was a movie, and I don't remember the movie right off, but these people were being trained to be like really deep members of the CIA, and it was Colin Farrell and this other lady, and they were being trained, but then something happened and it went bad, and they got kidnapped. And they got tortured by the mobsters, and it was like really deep torture, like, doing stuff to them and crying and humiliation, and they were about to kill them. They were pulling their fingernails off and stuff, just crazy dark stuff. And and finally Colin Farrell's character, I believe, cracked. I'll tell you everything. It's the CIA. Yes, I work for them. They're located here. This is what we're doing. Please stop. Please stop. And then as soon as he did that, he cracked. The lights turned on. Simulation over. Yeah, you cracked under pressure. Like, that was a test and a plan, an initiation from the CIA. It seemed like these mobsters that were trying to, crack him and get information, but it was the CIA people the whole time. And as soon as he cracked under pressure, oh yeah, he's not ready. He's not ready. Right. He's not ready to carry our secrets.
Interesting. Yeah, one thought I had from the comment that you got, it's the demonics and the lower level astral entities are in the same density a lot as the grays and the reptilians. It's the fourth density. So it's an energy source that comes kind of from the same place. They're not exactly the same, but they both work hand in hand to attach to people and to siphon the spiritual energy that way. But it's interesting too, like the rite of passage, like there's the third, the fourth, the fifth, and to go higher and higher, you have to go through each one and transcend each one, right? So it's like almost like in the Bible, I like the symbolism in the Bible, Jacob's ladder, going up each rung. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, and we're all, programmed and just in that nature that I think we forgot our heavenly nature, and those lower levels are easier to even when you're a kid, to go out and just climb up a few rungs of the ladder versus going all the way up.
Yeah, exactly.
But you learn, and I started out with the negative experiences, not with ETs, I would say, but with demonic beings, demonic spirits, that were all negative, but I was a negative person. And I feel like the deeds that a person is committing, the type of life that you're living, you're attracting those beings. And most of us, it's lower level stuff. I was a confused teenager in my adolescence that was into gang activity and using drugs and negative music and stuff. And so when I mixed spirituality or occultism with it and tried to make contact and pacts with beings to show up and say hello, like, I got to see the type of beings that were connected to the type of life that I was living. And it was scary. It was all lower level stuff. That's over 20 years ago. At this point, when I do it now, it's all bliss. It's all beautiful, higher level, the beings that are here to help. And they've been here the whole time. And with that being said, when everything comes full circle of, those demons that tried to take me out, I would say, but I made it out and I learned from my mistakes. I'm so appreciative of them for doing that and being orchestrated by, I would say, the Creator, by God, to allow me to experience the depths of darkness that exists, so that I know how beautiful and how special the light is. And so of something that we would attack or stay away from, be careful of those demons. I'm like, listen, thank you for what you imparted to me, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today with a natural empathy for people who are suffering, and it's that rite of passage. I'm really big on that. And I believe that there's a grand architect that, sets that up for us,
Yeah, it's like once you see the darkness, you're like, okay, there's got to be something completely opposite, like completely better than this. And that's important to note though, too, because a lot of young people, I mean, whatever, experiments with alcohol, drugs, but that lowers your psychic defenses. Like, have you ever been out to a bar and like you have this cool friends, they're great to hang out with, and then all of a sudden they start drinking and it's like their eyes change and they get all crazy? It's because it creates holes in your aura, and the more alcohol you drink or drugs or whatever, your vibration gets lower and lower and lower until a big enough hole is created where something else can come in. And you'll see it in people's eyes too. Like a lot of times, like you can look in people's eyes, if there's light in them, you'll see the light reflecting back, kind of like a baby. But I know probably most people can relate to the example of going to a bar with a friend. They get a weird look in their eyes, and then all of a sudden they're pissed off or they're angry. It's kind of like that. That's a dark entity that has come in and wants to basically play.
It's interesting you say that about bars too, because I've heard stories, and this is from Chris Everett, who talks about stories of being able to see them, these type of beings that hang out in bars. And he said actually that they hang out above doorways. They would hang out above the doorway, and somebody who is drunk or has let go of all of their inhibition, and they're opened up to whatever spirits, are out there. They'll see these like almost beings of slime or dark mist above a doorway that'll drop down on a person and enter their auric field and make attachments with them. Like they've seen this stuff. That's in movies. There's similar experiences like in Harry Potter and stuff. But when it comes to, be like losing your self-control, which you mentioned the Bible's big on being able to control yourself and not being in many ways, whether it is having a glass of wine or whether it is on food or whatever. Like self-control is key here to be able to learn it with all things. But that was an interesting connection about them hanging out in bars and dropping in on people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't spend a whole lot of time in bars, but when I do, like I never really drink, but if I do have a glass of wine or whatever, like I myself will start to see souls that have crossed over. And it's kind of annoying to me because you want to be like a happy medium, and when my psychic defenses are lower, it could be a benevolent or malevolent soul starts to come forward. So it's kind of, I don't usually like to do it, but that's interesting too. I can see that. What's that saying? A monkey on someone's back, kind of like that. That's how I imagine it.
Yeah, there's a book that I read early on by Rick Joyner called The Final Quest, and he kind of went and took the sabbatical in the mountains of North Carolina, and he got a download by himself, and he wrote this book, and it was a vision of people, and he's a Christian author, but he's definitely open to a lot of stuff. But it was of the spiritual warfare, and but it was in a movie setting, or like almost like Narnia or Lord of the Rings type deal, where there was an army of God's people, of light workers and healers, but they were all wounded. Some of them had been stabbed, and the healers weren't tending to their wounds. And one of the interesting things when it came to these demons is that some of the people in the army had demons riding their shoulders and controlling them, and it just painted this vivid picture of spiritual warfare, and some that would fly over them like birds and vomiting on them, and just the picture of the spirit world and what's really taking place if people really knew that literally there's monkeys on your shoulders.
That's interesting that you say that, because I literally was at the gym this morning and I was thinking about that, of how it actually looks like that from the astral level. Because that's why I always tell people to meditate, to find yourself, find the light within yourself, because there could be something behind you, or there's something feeding off of your pain and trauma that you haven't healed yet. And then you're carrying it around, and it's involved in every social interaction and every part of aspect of your life. You're just carrying it around with you. But that's how I imagine it, or I imagined it this morning. It's so funny you mentioned that.
And whatever it is that's on you or around you, it gets access to other people, your family, because it's on you. And so that's how they interact. Like they wouldn't have maybe legal ground or the right to mess with your son or daughter or your spouse or your friend, but because you've allowed yourself to be a vessel for that entity to channel, and you don't
Yep.
even know it. You don't even know it. And because it's latched onto you because of trauma, because of hurt, because of pain. And now they're interacting with family members and things like that. It gets really deep.
Yeah. And I had this idea, like, it's usually a lot of times, like when I do readings for people or when I talk to people about spirituality, there's usually like one person in the family that's considered the black sheep,
Yeah.
right? That has decided to transcend everything, and they're done with the ancestral trauma. But what will happen is those entities that are attached to your family members that are not healed, they'll come after you and they'll start to test you, and they'll try and bring you back down because they've been feeding off of your family's pain for so long. So that's something to think about too. You know, like I have a fine line with those types of entities where I will just completely disconnect. There's this thing in the spiritual community too, that you're always supposed to be spreading love and light, or you're not supposed to be quote unquote mean to anything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay to tell those kinds of beings to F off, you know? Not today. What's the saying? Like, not today, Satan.
Not today, Satan.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow, but not today, you know.
Yeah,
For sure. There's an interesting scripture too where dealing with John the Baptist, Jesus talks about the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven suffers violence, but the violent take it by force. So there has to be this putting our foot down and not be this passive light worker that, you know, so many of us only play defense. We haven't gotten into the offensive game. We only respond when they cut us, when they attack our family, then the warrior comes out of us or whatever, you know, versus like moving forward. But I will say that a lot of Christians have, but I think they've done it the wrong way. They've done it by being abrasive and a matter of fact and finger pointing. It's like, oh, you've gone too far out of alignment and out of balance with being able to be offensive and defensive. And you're not just playing offense, you're offensive. You've gotten the words mixed up. You've been you're offensive to people, you know, with your
I think there's like a fine line between being like the spiritual police or getting irritated with people because they don't believe what you believe. That's kind of like projection, right? And then actually standing for what you believe in and not changing it, you know, and like coming from that part of the strength or that strength. Yeah,
and obviously we know it's about balance. Like it is about balance. It's about being able to do both. It's about be in the world but not of it. Like you're essentially a shaman. You know, the work that we do, we travel back and forth from realms. I think everybody does it, but we're lucid. We're lucid in the dream. We understand that we can pull things from that realm and manifest it here and help people. So there's a responsibility. But if you was to just stay in that realm, which some people do, it's a form of escapism. And so they have all of these lofty ideas of who they are in past lives and who I am in the dream world. And I got friends and spouses in that realm and so much stuff, but it doesn't translate over to the earth realm in this school that we're in now, you know?
Yeah, there's like a lack of grounding in it. So I always think of that too. When you first get into spirituality, it's so you're supposed to use your imagination, or where that stuff happens, it's like the right side of the brain where everything's imaginative. But there's also a place for logic and reason too, because there'll be things, or you'll be given ideas too that will appeal to your ego, you know, like I'm queen of Atlantis and blah, blah, blah. That's something that's trying to appeal to your ego. And actually, when you label yourself it limits you, you know, like you're limiting yourself to behaving within that certain archetype, and who really wants that, you know? Yeah,
that's so true. You know, that's why, I'm open to all possibilities, but a lot of the people who share about channeling, they're usually this grandiose thing, or not channeling, but reincarnation or channeling. It's a big divine being. It's never some little guy or whatever. And I find that a lot of times it's what people want to be doing in this life, you know, I was a great magician in the 17th century, you know, and, you know, these
Yeah.
kind of things. And, but I'm open to it. Even in the Bible, there's some interesting scriptures about coming back and relearning and taking the test. And Elijah was supposed to come back, and they thought that John the Baptist and even Jesus was Elijah reincarnated and things like that. But there's, you know, this realm of fantasy. Like,
Right.
we need some proof. We need, it's got to be tangible. It's got to be something that you can share with a child and help them, you know, in their trauma, not just to get lost in fantasy.
Yeah, that's anything, sometimes too, things that appeal to the ego, or if you're channeling and you start to believe you're Joan of Arc or whoever, a lot of times too, that could be artificial intelligence and you're channeling from a satellite. And that's run by the cabal. You know, using an archetype like that, kind of like a celebrity, to put yourself up here and other people are down here and you're really important, that's a cabal tactic. You know, so they're appealing to the ego, or appealing to the programming that they've programmed the human race to abide by.
Yeah,
you know,
that's deep. I've seen so many instances where even organizations that are just like, they were organisms at first. They were just a group of people who met and they did their thing, but they're like, hey, let's take this serious. And they start giving roles, but with those roles came titles. You have an unction for your function. Whatever you do, you're going to do it. You don't need my permission. You don't need a name tag. I don't have to give you a card that says I'm this. If I'm a prophet, if I'm a seer, I'm just going to do what prophets and seers do. I'm going to prophesy. I'm going to see visions. I'm going to dream dreams, and there's going to be some manifestation. Now, you don't have to call me that. I don't need your approval. But once you start handing out titles and cards, things get a little wonky. You know, most of us, we want to be acknowledged. We want to be somebody. We want to be special. We feel like we've been nobodies our whole life, and now we have a title. But I've seen weird organisms, because when people come together in a cluster, you know, beauty happens, because there's different strengths and there's different offices and operations. But once you start giving titles and stuff, I've seen things fall apart like really quick after that happens.
Yeah, because then you have employed something that you have to live up to, right? Instead of just being yourself and being a fractal of source. And there's an art to staying within that balance of that energy of all that is, right? And then once you label yourself, you've immediately lowered your vibration, and now you have to be that. Right. I even find it like embarrassing, people interviewing me and wanting to read my bio of a psychic medium or whatever. I mean, I just say that so that people have some idea of who I am. Yeah. But I actually don't even like to call myself psychic or a medium. Most extraterrestrial races, they communicate via telepathy. So that's not even like a real, you know, it's not even a real thing. It's just part of what, you know, what your soul is. So
yeah, I'm with you. And yeah, it's if you had to put your true bio, it would be a book. And it's like whatever I'm needed, and you get to feel, you get to see what a person needs, and you get to assist. And we have so many tools, and there's so many parts of us that so many passions that people don't even know about, that you can't put in a bio because it would be 17,000 words long. Oh, she does this too. That's the part I need. So like, you know, here's an overview. Let's get together. And yeah, you didn't know I was skilled in that. Yeah, I love that. And I forgot to put it in my bio because I'm limited. Like Twitter only gives you 200 words for your bio, you know, kind of thing. So it's like, let me just tackle this, and this so that you get an idea. Meagan, we got to go to a quick commercial break, but we got some questions in the chat I want to ask you whenever we get back. And everybody, go ahead and ask your questions now for Meagan Rose Medium, and we'll ask those on the other side of the break. There's more questions about telepathy and that, so we want to go a little bit deeper on that when we get back. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this break. Stay with us.
Elementals are different. Elementals are really strange. I've seen elementals. I've had one-on-one experience with elementals. I don't know exactly what they are. All I know is what to call them. But I've had incidents where I have been in the company of elementals. They're spirit creatures like fairies, and the Irish are very big on talking about the different fairies and the different magical little creatures. Leprechauns, I have seen gnomes and leprechauns and fairies. These are what we call the elementals. They are legitimately life forms, but they don't live in the world you do. They live in a different kind of world, an elemental world. But we call them the elementals. It's quite a subject. Life outside of being a human. What is life like in the spirit world? And that's what you're talking about in your book.
I explore these concepts and more in my new book, Spirit Realm: Angels, Demons, Spirits, and the Sovereignty of God. Forward by Jordan Maxwell. Available now at TruthSeekah.com.
Hi folks, I'm Santos Bonacci and I am now tuned in to The Awakening. Music is one of the most powerful expressions of truth that we have. It is a very powerful consciousness expander and a great medium for transmitting truth. Check out the work of TruthSeekah at TruthSeekah.com for some great and powerful consciousness expanding music.
Self-medicated, I was contemplating psilocybin. I know they hate it, but Mother Nature prescribed it. Look within while meditating in silence. Step into the inner core, enter through the iris.
Aloha. Aloha to you. That's what's good. Thank you. Truth Seeker says, what's up? What's up? Truth Seeker and myself, we had a deep ass conversation. It was a long ass time ago. I smoked one. I went off. I went crazy.
The TruthSeekah Podcast, it's the best podcast. I mean, it really is. I've heard a few, and his is the best. They debunked the prophecies saying, I was your president. I'm not. I'm really not. But keep listening, and you will learn something cool. I'm sure of it. Like, really sure.
To the mall.
You're listening to the TruthSeekah Podcast. Now, back to the show.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back with Meagan Rose Medium. I was trying to think of these lyrics that I had, but it goes dowsing and dozing while holding the wizard staff of Moses. Hot yoga with Jedi Master Yoda. Angels and aliens. Contact the pale Pleiadians who resemble Ivanka. You talk about these Pleiadians who are tall, pale, blonde hair, look a lot like you and Ivanka. Yeah. And so I had that lyric. I was like, it's the perfect time to quote it. You talk about how they look, and you right. Look a lot like what the Pleiadians look like.
Yeah, if my eyes were blue, they kind of have long faces, higher cheekbones, and really the way they look alien, they're humanoid, but what makes them look more alien is their very large, wide set eyes that are blue. So Ivanka, yes, she's so beautiful. Melania, even if she had blonde hair, she would look a lot like them too, with her wide set eyes. Yeah.
Let's see. So many questions in my head that they all just kind of hit a brick wall together because I got so many, and there's so many in the chat too.
But my rescuers were male, but they're Valnek, the name of my rescuer who I've kept in contact with, is tall, blonde hair, blue eyes, light skin. Okay. So yeah, similar features.
Okay, here's the question, and you may not know. Are you familiar with the work of H.P. Blavatsky, Helena Blavatsky?
Okay. No.
Anyway, there's she's really controversial. I love her work, but she's really controversial. Her name will make people turn off when I say that. You know, she brought occultism and spirituality and mediumship to America. She really did. Eastern practices, she brought it, and we're able to have this conversation because of her work, for sure. But she says some things about a race of beings that are like these blonde hair, blue eyed people, and a lot of people get into like this elite class or whatever, and they think that Hitler got into some of that. But I just wonder. I didn't know if you knew was she talking about the Pleiadians at all? You know, that's something to look into, that she could have been referencing back of the original people, the people who were here on Earth at one point. You know, and it's just, you know, I just connect all things together. But I'm not sure if you know much about that at all. But that's fine.
I'm not sure. I mean, I know that planet Earth has been colonized by many, many different races. My specific rescuers, or the group, the race they're from, are benevolent, but there are many, many humanoids that have blonde hair and blue eyes that are malevolent as well. But I believe the indigenous humans were African American or had darker skin, and I believe they have they're powerful shamans. They have that in their bloodline, and they're they're just powerful people. So I believe that that's my personal opinion, that they're the indigenous, the original Earth people. And then different colonies and different races colonized other people that have different skin colors and stuff like that. You know, because if you look at planet Earth, we're all kind of like a collective, like a melting pot, right? We all kind of look different. So
yeah. And you know, the scriptures are clear too. It says, judge no man according to the flesh. Like, you got to look deeper at the soul and at the spirit of an individual, because looks can be deceiving. Just like you just said, there are beautiful humanoid beings that are malicious, like in space and in the ethers, but on Earth as well.
Exactly.
Looks can be deceiving. They're trying to. A lot of times, people are trying to cover up something that's within them that's not that beautiful, you know. And they have to take on a persona in order to do that and to get in there, like, with the people, you know.
Yeah, so, I mean, it goes to like reptilian shapeshifters, you know, shapeshifting into celebrities, beautiful looking people, but they're ugly on the inside, right? So
yeah, there's a story that Billy Corgan flirted with. He didn't tell the full story or where he was at, but he said that he's the lead singer from Smashing Pumpkins, but on an interview, and he was kind of teasing in his book that he's going to put it out in his book, but being a part of Hollywood and being in studios where he looked at somebody, they turned their head and shape-shifted in front of them just to show him. Now, he wouldn't say who it was, but it was a major celebrity. And you hear a lot of stories about that. Some of these beings are like, there's so much disinfo now, which makes it a little even harder to look into, to be an independent researcher, because now, early on, I think it was a lot easier, and the waters weren't as muddy. But now, if you try to look into the stuff, you're going to see Photoshop, you're going to see a lot of stuff. But there's a lot of glitches that happen from the elite and from these celebrities, that they go into a blank stare. Things start happening with their skin and with their eyes. Again, there's so much disinfo with it, but it doesn't negate looking into when a person shifts or glitches and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on celebrity and elite glitching on camera and stuff?
That could be an array of different things, but I also, like, a lot of celebrities have undergone MK Ultra mind control, so that could be a reason that they're having a blank stare. They do have, the reptilians have technology where they can actually remove the soul of the person. So, you know that saying, sell your soul to the devil? And remember how I said lower level astral entities, like people that worship Satan, they're connected to the reptilians, and they run the Vatican, basically. So they actually, that saying, sell your soul to the devil, they actually have technology to remove the soul of that person and put a different soul into that body, right? So it could even be that. But always look in the eyes. You'll see celebrities with beautiful looking blue eyes, but they're flat and they're dark. There's no light in them, you know, and it could be a clone without a soul too, or an artificial synthetic. So it can be really confusing.
Yeah, especially when like, to say as a matter of fact, that's the hard part, and we got to be careful with bearing false witness against people. We don't want to have that on our hand to say that person is definitely a devil worshiper or definitely alien gray in disguise or something. Like, hey, like, you know, there's so many people making videos and declaring stuff that it's of your opinion, and it's a great opinion, but to say as a matter of fact, we really have to be careful. But a lot of interesting stuff. I say listen to them long enough. When it comes to a lot of celebrities, the more they talk, they do podcasts, there's videos of them glitching, doing weird stuff, but you'll start to hear them. If you listen to them long enough, you'll start to hear stuff that, hold on, a normal human wouldn't say that. You don't value human life like my family does, or everyone I know. You laugh at people's calamity. You don't value people unless they're at this. There's stuff that comes out. Like, I've listened to a lot of, and I'm not accusing anything, but Joe Rogan podcast. And he'll make fun of people who change oil at, like, almost not just a second class citizen, but like almost like not even a human. And there's a lot of stuff that we're like, when you're putting out the persona that you're one of the bros, but then you're saying stuff like, hold on, or even, you know,
bro can't change his own oil though.
Sandra Bullock, like in her, like what she talks about, the what she uses to stay looking young. Oh, that's weird. That's weird. I don't know if that's, you know, how normal that is. And when you listen, stuff starts like being very strange. I mean, and they're doing a lot of stuff in the open and don't care about it. And that's why those videos are created. That's why, you know, people call out, you know, those celebrities and, you know, Lady Gaga and those people, because hey, like, your art and what you're bringing to the table is beautiful, but some of the other stuff, like, is kind of strange that you're involved with, you know?
Totally. I can usually hear, like, when people speak, there's their voice and then there's an entity inside the voice too. I mean, it takes, like, obviously a bit of awareness to be able to tune in that way. But I think in general, like, it would be a fair speculation that anyone who's comfortable with being that famous or worshipped or idolized in that sense, like with millions of followers and millions of people, and they're comfortable with that, or they're, you know, they're okay with constantly talking about certain things. I think you can kind of, I don't know, form a fair opinion on that, like the whole thing in general. And Hollywood, it was created by the CIA, you know, they've been involved in Hollywood, and it's part of the programming too, kind of like, and now it's infiltrated the spiritual community where we're supposed to idolize someone who
spiritual celebrity,
the spiritual celebrity too as well. So it's, you know,
I'm sure, you know, like I know, and obviously there, you know, there's some you know, realms of considerations that we have a platform, and, you know, we have branding, and there's stuff you can hire us for, and we charge and stuff, and it's what we do. It's part of, you know, this matrix. But there's people who fly under the radar, who don't own a microphone, who don't want a microphone, who would never charge for a session. They don't want to be interviewed. They're not going to email me, or, hey, I'd like to come on your podcast and tell people about the so-and-so. They're not those people. I have a special place in my heart for those who move in silence and still walk in power and signs and wonders, but people will never know their name because they're weary of the spotlight. They're weary of this people knowing who they are, because with that comes great responsibility. So my hat is off to those people who you'll never hear their name, but they exist, and they move, and they get a download, they get an assignment, and they go do it, and they show up, and they those people are out there, whether they're angels in disguise, you know, that's definitely a part of it, but a lot of them are just regular people who have chosen to live a humble lifestyle, but they're very much connected to the spirit realm and hearing the voice of spirit. A
lot of them too are Native American shamans. or medicine men. And they know their shit. They are like if you're lucky enough to be attracted to one and somehow get contact info from some of those people, they're completely knowledgeable, but they're like, their energy is the perfection of, if you can call it that, but just the I am presence, right? No labels, no nothing. They're just in that frequency of all that is. Yeah.
We're going to jump to some questions because we are having a lot come through. I did something a couple of weeks ago. It was a speed round, like, because there were so many questions. I was like, let's go really fast. And there was music that played. We won't do that, but there is a lot of questions here, and we'll jump to some of those now. The first one here from my friend who's been adding to a lot to this conversation is from the Flying Penguins. He wants to know, with the telepathic communication, and this was something that I've been curious about, because I don't think I have an implant or anything like that. I don't know. I do get the downloads in telepathic communication. Hey, look here. Hey, do this. Hey, go there. A lot of people do. With your communication, and you mentioned like implants and stuff. I had Elena Danaan on. She mentioned having an implant and almost being able to hear audibly. Do you have an implant? And is everyone who is hearing have implants? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know if everyone has an implant, but I have one. I have one that was placed in 2019 when I was, I guess you could call it abducted, but I was invited onto a Federation ship, and they placed it. It's placed for protection and communication, but so that I can communicate with my rescuer. So it's kind of like, it's a lot of people like might think that it's some sort of technology that is like a chip, but it's from a higher density, and it looks like a frequency that kind of holds a shape, basically. And that is tuned to Valnek, my rescuer's frequency, so that I can communicate him with telepathically. So that's how I communicate with him. And it's a technology that they have that is not hackable. So it's tuned to a high frequency. So it's like the Greys and the reptilians and all of that cannot come in and hack it. So that's for my own protection. That's why I have it. But to communicate with like spirits or souls that have crossed over, I don't need it, or I don't use it for that. But the communication, it's telepathy, but it's just not as clear. Like they might use the spirit or the soul that comes forward might use like images, or they might give me a feeling, or I'm using the 5 clairs, like clairaudience, clairvoyance, stuff like that. A lot of people too, they think there's a perception too that these higher density beings, that they don't use technology, or that technology is bad, but it's really just a tool.
Yep.
The good guys use it, the bad guys use it. The good guys actually have better technology. It's amazing. So yeah.
Awesome. Same person. Asking a bunch of great questions here. Flying Penguins, what does she think about mushrooms? Do they lower your frequency or act like training wheels for accessing higher frequencies? Because I also noticed on your website, you mentioned that you don't use any tools. I don't know if that was what you meant about, you mentioned alcohol, because I know some psychics and healers, they have to be intoxicated. Like it helps them bypass this barrier of the ego, that I'm gonna look silly when I'm channeling. I'm gonna look silly when I'm pulling energy and stuff. So they use that, some of that stuff as a crutch, or like Flying Penguin says, as training wheels and mushrooms and things like that. What are your thoughts on plant medicines and tools and things like that, like you mentioned?
My what I meant by tools is I don't use tarot cards or pendulums or anything like that. My personal opinion for myself is I don't do any drugs or any alcohol or anything. But there are some people who do. I mean, if you're going to do plant medicines, I'm not in the business of telling people, what to do, but make sure you do it with protection, because like we talked about earlier, first of all, if you haven't transcended traumas, or if you have something attached to you, if you do magic mushrooms, you're probably going to have a bad trip, right? Yeah. That's kind of like 101. So if you're going to do it with protection. Mm-hmm. But to be honest, I don't find it necessary to be in touch with yourself or be in touch with spirituality. I prefer not to, because I think it can be really, really unsafe if you don't know what you're doing. Even if you do know what you're doing, it's still, it's a gray area, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely not to rely on anything. I think that's key.
Right.
Again, when we mentioned earlier, self-control,
Yeah.
self-control is to not rely on a tool. I know people who do. The beautiful thing with modalities and tools, I would say, is that we have a lot. We have so many, and that's the beautiful thing once you start learning it. Again, we just interviewed a friend of mine, Stephanie Jones, about tapping, and it's just a little healing modality of touching and releasing trauma and asking questions, and there's so many. So to have one that you do and then to wear it out, because once somebody has a breakthrough or beautiful experience, they get addicted. They have an addictive personality. So it's mushrooms every weekend. It's mushrooms every day. And so it takes away that, what we call sacred plant medicines. It's not sacred anymore.
Yeah.
It's not even plant medicine. It's a plant addiction or something that ends up forming, marijuana, you have to have it every day kind of thing,
Yeah, totally. I mean, when I first started to get into spirituality, I would read tarot cards, and then I just it was like a stepping stone from there. So there's always there might be a place or a lesson in each thing that you try,
Question here from Kelly Stockton. She says, I'm curious about what she knows about astrology and the accuracy of it. I'm learning about it now, and I'm trying to connect that with what I've learned from Meagan. Thank you. So astrology and the accuracy of astrology.
I really I know basics of astrology, but I don't know that much. What I do know is that the sky, or the the constellations, it's kind of like a image, or it's a optical illusion of how things actually look from planet Earth. When I've asked my ET friends if astrology is accurate, they said no, but I personally have had astrology readings where I could see similarities. I could relate it to my own life, but they may have said that because it looks like an optical illusion from planet Earth, and that's not how things actually are in the galaxy, but I actually, I do like astrology. I do resonate with some of it, but I the way that I do my work is I just connect in, or I just link in. That's the easiest way for me to, do my job.
There's a awesome documentary out there on YouTube. I forgot the name of it. I'm sure you can begin to Google it. And if anybody knows it in chat, let me know. But it was a documentary about a study that was done by the government, where women who were pregnant with triplets, the government would essentially buy the children. They would buy the children, and they would give and they would find women who were single mothers or just bad off kind of thing, where they could step in and say, hey, we'll take care of you for the rest of your life, but we want a good home for these children, and they would tell them a little bit of stuff, but they wouldn't tell them everything. And there was different studies done where the mother would give up 2 children, and they would put them in this certain foster home, a Jewish foster home, that would run these studies. And the study was to take the triplets and split them up and raise them in polar opposite families of this is a strong family that has a lot of money, very wealthy. Here's a poor family, but they're tight knit. In the wealthy family, dad's always working, and you're a latchkey kid, you're home a lot because dad doesn't get off till late. Mom's working as well. So there was these different situations that they put these triplets in, and they accidentally found each other. And the story about them finding each other was, one of them just so happened to move to a specific state and ended up going to college for his first year. He goes to college for his first time. He enrolls. Everybody says, hey, Jeffrey, what's going on, man? Welcome back. I thought you weren't coming back this year. He's like, I wasn't. This is my first time. Who are you guys? And everybody knows him. What's up, brother? Giving him 5. He's like, I'm new. I'm a new student. And they're like, quit messing with us, man. And they're calling him this name. And it's like, that's not my name. No. That is you. What are you doing? Quit messing with us, bro. And it's like, they're like, they come to find out, well, this isn't him. He look exactly like this guy. I gotta call him. Let me call him. So they call the guy on the phone, and he's like, hey, talk to my friend Jeffrey, and they sound identical. And that's how they found out that they were long lost twin brothers. They reconnected. They look exactly like each other. They have all these similarities in their personalities. They smoke the same cigarettes. They're into the same type of women. They got the same haircut. They like the same sports teams. Like everything is exactly the same, and they never had contact and were raised in completely different families. And so much so that Oprah picked it up. It got national news. It was all over the place. I believe it was in the mid 90s. And these two twins. And then a third person watched it, and somebody, I think it was a grandmother of an adopted kid, was like, hey, there's two guys who reunited. You're adopted. You look just like these guys. And there was a third one. So they all found each other, and they weren't supposed to. Like they were supposed to keep them apart, and the government was doing studies on them and seeing if it was nature or if it was nurture that, you know, chose their outcome of the things that they liked and that they were into. And in the end, there were differences about them. But as far as them being born like at the same time, and the government doing all these tests on them, everything was similar as far as the things that they liked and personalities and all of this stuff. Violent Sky here it says it's called Three Identical Strangers, and it's on Netflix.
I think I've heard of that. I probably seen it before.
That was amazing. So if we're looking at astrology and people who are born under the same star constellations in the same time, if you look up the things that you like and look up some celebrities or musicians that you resonate with, most likely they're the same, born under the same zodiac sign as you. Very interesting study, very interesting documentary. And it was also interesting that the government was in on doing their own experiments back in the day and had all this funding to do so.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds like some sort of secret government program, and I would bet that they are involved in other nefarious practices too, for sure.
Yeah, that wasn't supposed to get out. You know, those people weren't supposed to, like, you have two brothers, you were never supposed to meet each other. You're never supposed to meet your mom, all of that. And they got to reconnect, and they weren't the only family. There was others that they ended up finding out because of their story, and people who met other people. And just, man, this is a small world, you know, people.
I would be interested to see, though, if the government didn't put trackers in them, like implants in them. Because the malevolent extraterrestrials, they gave the government that technology in exchange to invade planet Earth. Mm-hmm. So I can't help but wonder if they actually put trackers or they have implants in them as well. Interesting.
Yeah.
Part of a program.
Yeah. And that's just something we know about. You know what I'm saying? There's so many more. Another question here from KJB Rocky, and he asked this several times. Meagan, are you a Christian? Do you believe in Jesus?
I don't label myself as a Christian. I believe in the Bible, like the concepts of the Bible and the concepts of the teaching, but I don't like to limit my beliefs to I believe in this or I believe in that. I just take it and I keep it in mind as a lesson for myself. So, but yeah, I mean, I do believe in Jesus, but do I believe that I think that in Christianity, Jesus is placed up here and the followers are down here, right? Mm-hmm. And when you actually read the words of the Bible, Jesus wanted to be your friend. So I don't worship Jesus, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I take his teachings into account, you know? Yep. So that's how I think of that.
Awesome. YG Nacio Rubio asks, do you have a particular diet, or do you feel that this is even an issue when it comes to, I would say, spirituality and contact and things like that? A particular diet, does that matter?
I eat when I'm hungry. No, I don't have a particular diet. I work out a lot. I run, I lift weights, I do yoga, so I have to eat a lot. So I don't stick to, I mean, I try to eat healthy, but I also I don't know, I don't really pay that much attention to it. You know, I try and take care of myself, but I'm not strict about what I eat or limit myself on what I eat. Okay. I don't eat a lot. I don't eat red meat really. But I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan or anything like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people take a hard stance on, veganism when it comes to spirituality and enlightenment and all that kind of stuff. And there's differing opinions, and I'm glad you answered it. And I like your answer. So
I think eventually the human race will evolve to be vegetarians or vegans or eat or maybe even just absorb light, because I know a lot of higher density beings, even in just the 5th density, they just have the ability to absorb light or eat vegetables or eat stuff that's not an animal, right? So I think eventually it would make sense for our genetics to evolve that way. But yeah, no, I don't abide by those practices right now.
Awesome. And I know you got to go here in a moment. I guess one last question here. Again, from Flying Penguins wants to know, what are your thoughts on the ultimate purpose? What is the goal for you and for humanity and the universe? Like, what is the meaning of this realm and what's happening here? Is there a purpose to it, or is it all by chance, I would say?
I think that there's order and structure to the universe, but I don't think I could answer the purpose of everyone for the entire planet, And I get this question a lot too by a lot of people ask me, what's my life purpose? And my answer would be, we have a lot of different purposes, right?
Yeah.
Maybe one year you're supposed to be doing this, serving in this way. And then another, you get into something else and you do. It's part of the journey and it's ever changing. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that.
Awesome. And Meagan, thanks so much for coming on, hanging out. I know you got to go, you got stuff going on, but let people know where they can get in contact with you, follow your YouTube. I know you do one-on-one sessions, but you're booked out pretty far, right?
I am still doing remote viewing. So if you have a missing persons case or a missing pet, I can help you find them. But personal readings, I have a long wait list for. But my website's Meagan Rose Medium. The information's on there, and then Meagan Rose Medium on YouTube too. So
great. Anything that we didn't mention that you want to speak to or speak on before we go?
I think like my main message would be, do not consent to fear. And just connect with yourself and raise your vibration and keep it high, and that's pretty much it.
I like that. Wise words spoken for sure. Meagan, thank you so much for coming on, hanging out with me. I really enjoyed picking your brain about these subjects and hearing about your story. And let's do it again. I'd love to have you on anytime. So we do a round table or something. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Meagan Rose Medium, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure y'all go check out her YouTube, check out her website, and everything that she's bringing to the table. She's done several interviews with Elena Danaan, and that's how I found her. It was through Elena Danaan, and she's a beautiful soul as well, and her story and the similarities. Find the others, find those people who have been through similar experiences, who have been through a lot of the same things that you have, and that's your tribe, that's your people, man. We're gonna go to another quick break. We got to pay the bills. Check out this little promo that I put together. And with that being said, on the other side, if anybody has any questions for me, you want to get my thoughts or my opinions on anything, I'll be around for a few more minutes after the break. We had fun last night after the break. There was a little awkwardness, but then we got rolling, and there was a lot of good questions that came through the break. So if anybody has any questions for me, go ahead and type them in the chat, and I'll get to them in a moment, and we'll be right back after this. Wow, so the throne room meditation, man, this was just like a new level for me of creating encounter. Really the process behind it is going in for myself, having an encounter with the Lord, tapping into the Spirit and getting in His presence, and really just petitioning the Father's heart and saying, God, what would you say to them? if I'm bringing these people with me here, if they're doing this guided meditation and we're going through this journey, we're having fun, we're seeing things, we're experiencing new feelings and emotions and sensations, what would you say to them? So it's channeling the Father's heart and relating it back to the people. So man, it's just a beautiful encounter. And I remember when I wrote the first one, I was so excited about it, and it was just God speaking to my heart. I was able to channel the Father's heart, and I would read the script to people because I was just so excited while I was working on it. And every time that I would just read the script, the presence of God would just invade me, and I just burst into tears, and I couldn't even read it. I'm just like, let me copy and paste it and send it to you. But every time I listen to it, I'm immediately translated back into the throne room of God, and everything's good there. That's the place where everything is okay, where in the scriptures it says that we are to hide under the shadow of the Almighty. This is the throne room of God. This is the place that we can encounter for ourselves, but this is also a place in which we dwell. So a part of us is always there, and we have access to that. Now, there's people who have never encountered this before in their life, and it's a totally new experience for them. And almost every time I get a testimony back from someone, they just say how God wrecked their lives, that they didn't know what they were getting into. The next thing they know, they're in the presence of God, wrapped up in His glory. He's communicating His love to them, and it just totally wrecks their lives. So make sure you check out the throne room guided meditation, visualization that I brought to the table.
There are things that go bump in the night. Pull up a chair. Don't be scared, for you have many friends unaware on the TruthSeekah Podcast.
TruthSeekah Podcast.
TruthSeekah.
He seems like a nice guy.
You're listening to the TruthSeekah Podcast. Now, back to the show.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the TruthSeekah Podcast. Taking questions. If anybody has any, I'll be around for a few more minutes. I'd like to make myself available. Again, I get inboxes and people reaching out to me all the time and wanting to pick my brain and those kind of things. And I'm not against that. But a lot of times when people have questions, you got to understand that you're not the only one going through stuff. A lot of people have the same questions. And so I like answering the questions on the air versus, trying to type it out or whatever and get my point across. But there's a lot of people with that who end up misunderstanding you or not what you're trying to say. And there's a lot of that, a lot of misunderstandings, because a lot of times what we do is misunderstood. A lot of times people misunderstand me, but that's understanding, because sometimes I can be misunderstanding, right? Questions here. What is your thoughts on the Pleiadians? Some say Christ comes from there. That's from Adam Starseed Bay. My thoughts on the Pleiadians, I mentioned them a couple times in my music, and yeah, I think that Christ mentions the Pleiades, right? I think it's a special part in the scriptures that He holds the 7 stars within His hands. The 7 stars, and the Pleiades are known as the 7 sisters or the 7 stars, and it's also mentioned of in the book of Job. So for people to think that this isn't a Bible conversation or part of it, many constellations are mentioned of in the Bible. So I find it interesting that we have a reference to the 7 sisters and 7 stars in the book of Job. And then we have it mentioned of in the book of Revelation that Christ is actually holding that within His hand. Like, what does that mean? Does it mean that He is from the Pleiades? Does it, because, is that in His hand? Like, what does that mean? Does that mean that that is a part of who He is? That as He holds that in His hand, He is a spokesman from that place? I'm not really sure. I don't like to look at Jesus as an alien. I'll say that. So people say, well, He was an alien who came from Orion to blah, blah, blah. I don't look at that. Obviously, before He came here, His spirit was somewhere special, that He was with the Father before creation, and he had a special purpose that he brought to the table, and he was special. I don't think that he was just a regular person or just some random alien that came to Earth to teach people. I think that he was the lamb that was slain before the foundations of the earth. And when it comes to the zodiac, and when it comes to the story of the stars, I think that there's a story that is being told within the stars, and it's telling his story. It's telling the story of the coming Messiah who would save and liberate humanity, and maybe even the entire cosmos, some would say, from their sin, from their folly, and to restore them back to their rightful place in the universe as sons and daughters of the Supreme Creator, the sons and daughters of God. So it's very special, and his story's in the stars, and obviously our story is too. Like if we're looking up at that, if we're born under a certain astrological calculation and under a certain zodiac, then our story is written in the stars as well. Maybe that's the book of life. Maybe that's the Akashic records that we can tap into, and people who are into and have studied ancient astrology have been able to do it. Again, the magi or the magicians were the ones who showed up and were the first ones to follow the stars to the birth of the Messiah, to follow those constellations. So maybe everything is hidden and written within the stars. And so for somebody to be able to stargaze or to contemplate or to study, they're able to unlock those secrets, the secrets of the stars. The Bible says that the morning stars sing out. It's almost this notion that if you go out in the early morning under the morning stars, that they begin to speak to you, that the stars will send you energy, that it's believed that the stars are even angels that are sharing information and recording the deeds of mankind. And that goes into the book of Enoch and many other books and spiritual traditions, and even enlightenment as gazing upon the stars. And the interesting thing, how it relates to spirituality to me with stargazing and just gazing at what's above you and UFOs and all of this stuff, is that the fact is that it's been there the whole time, and all you had to do was look up. All you had to do was look up, but you were too concerned with the things of this world. Jesus mentions before he ascends himself, he says, don't be focused upon the things of the earth. They're temporary. What is unseen is eternal. And he says, watch the skies. Be a stargazer. For the very same way in which I left, it was going to be the same way in which I come back. And so he mentions this. And then ever since then, there's been amazing, crazy things that are recorded in history that take place within the sky, within the stars, or we don't even have to use sky. Let's just say heavens, because it's the same word. In the Greek and Hebrew, the same word that's used in there in the Bible is heaven. And people say, well, that's the first heaven. That's not the second heaven, bro. No, it's when you're gazing into the stars, you're gazing into the heavens. When you're gazing into Orion, you're gazing into the New Jerusalem. You're gazing into the place where everything is manifested and created from. So to think that the stars are just random balls of gas that are burning somewhere millions of miles away, no, they have significance. They're here for a reason. And all you have to do is look up and block off the time. Block off the time. And you'll see things that will blow your mind, whether it's the stars, whether it's constellations, whether it's downloads, it doesn't matter. But the thing is it's always been there, and all you had to do was look up. Another question here. YG Nacio Rubio says again, he says, do you have a creative process for your music? The most creative process is just inspiration and downloads of just doing something that comes to me when I'm doing something else. And I'm usually not here at the place where I record. It usually happens somewhere else. Yes, there's times where I get in the flow and it's time to write a song and I'm vibing on beats and I'm writing. A lot of that now is how I get lyrics, but it's something special to me whenever I'm out somewhere else and I get a download or an inspiration for lyrics or for samples. Like there's times where listen, working on White Magic, where I needed a sample and of somebody speaking, and I needed it in my music because that's part of what I do. And there was a time where one sample on a song, it took me a full day of listening and digging through transcripts and lectures from a certain voice I heard. So it had to be an older lady. That's just what I heard in the song. So that was there. And the song was about, the song is entitled As Above, So Below. So I kind of wanted a theosophist. So I had to kind of break it down and find something. And it took me a whole day. Actually more than a day, because I've been looking days before and actually getting other people to help me. And so it's a hard process, but the easier process is to just be organically listening to such a documentary or watching a movie, and something pops out to you when you weren't, okay, time to write a song, time to work on this. This is what we do. So I really like the inspiration of doing other things, and it comes. And what is one of those things? What I just mentioned, stargazing. Stargazing, and I'm not thinking about, let's get lyrics. Give me downloads of lyrics, stars. No, you're stargazing and you're just in the moment. The cool breeze blows and it hits your face, and you can see every star, and you're in the mountains of North Carolina or Tennessee, and you're in a special place, and I'm thinking a little glimpse of something magical, a little taste of something divine. It's the feeling of something intangible and some things that will blow your mind. My eyes close, my mind opens, I lose sight, but I gain focus. Like those lyrics. And so now when I hear that song, it has a special meaning because I know where I was at when I created it, when I got the download or got the inspiration for those lyrics, versus sitting here in the studio to write a song. And that's beautiful. It's good too. But I rather the earlier, creative, hungry, searching knowledge and meditation and downloads. That's the most beautiful. So I kind of hold a standard, you know what I'm saying? Like it has to be just as creative. It has to be just as good, and it has to move me. And whether it's reading a book or any of those things. So that's a part of the creative process of getting samples and writing music and getting inspired. And I talk about how it usually comes from a place where you're tapping into the subconscious or the unconscious, where you're not really focusing on what you're doing. You're doing something mundane, jogging, taking a shower, driving your car, listening to a song, and somebody says something, and then they rhyme something, and then all these other rhymes keep coming from their rhyming scheme. Oh wow, I'm gonna use something similar, but I'm gonna keep doing it and add these other syllables to it. So that's part of the process. It is part of the process, and I love that part because it's spontaneous, it's random, and you're able to pick up on things and not force anything. And that's a big part of being able to continue to create beautiful art. But thank you for the question. And let's see. And Flying Penguin says, I appreciate you and your work, bro. Sonic Tapestry says, awesome animation. Thank you. I think so too. I really, really like putting those together and hiring people and coming up with scripts and working with the animators. That's so fun. That's so fun to be able to pay somebody and say, hey, this is what I want. You know, I want myself at a campfire in the woods with all of the things that I talk about on the podcast, like all of the paranormal, woo-woo, weird stuff. I want to see me at a campfire with a Yeti, with alien grays, with a blue avian, with a gnome, you know, and these beings, and we're all just chilling at a campfire roasting marshmallows. That would be a cool animation. It would be a cool t-shirt. And so I draw it out and I send it to the animator, and they have no idea what a blue avian is. So I get to find like stock images online of something similar. Okay, this is a blue avian. This is what he looks like. This is the gnome. This is all kind of gnomes, right? It's all kind of aliens, you know? And it's like, okay, I want this kind of alien. So I get all the pictures of what I want them to look like, and I send it to them, and I give them a sketch drawing. For those of you, if this will focus, you'll be able to see it. But it's a very rough sketch, and I got to kind of explain what it was. And I'm going to hold it up to the camera of that clip. So that is TruthSeekah at the campfire. And it's just a rough sketch with the alien gray, gnomes, campfire. The smoke rises. And as the smoke rises, it forms TruthSeekah Podcast. And then I hire a voice actor. Okay, we need a voice actor to narrate something. Let me write something. What is the script? You have many friends unaware. Don't be scared. Pull up a chair at the TruthSeekah Podcast. Okay, now I get to go through all the voice actors and like, no, don't like her, don't like him. Nah, too weird. Wow, that reminds me of something from the 80s, like the 80s creep show and creature features. Yeah, I want that one. So the creative process and the juices, which never stop for me. Never stop for me. And I love it. I love every single part of it. So that's part of the creative process, man. Some people don't care about it. You know, I love it. I love it. People want to see the finished product, but like what goes into creating something like that. Adam says, do you have any personal info about your understanding of Sirius and the Pleiadians? And have you heard of the great Sirius Pleiadian battle that is still going on? I have not heard about a battle that's going on between the two. Just, you know, my studies of with you know, Sirius is the dog star. And I believe that it's really closely related. If we want to learn about Sirius, we have to go back to the Dogon tribe, which that star, there was two Sirius stars. There's another one I think that's next to it, but it's harder to see. But Sirius is known as the dog star, and we have to go back to the Dogon tribe to really get the knowledge and info on that. Don't go to YouTubers who are just making stuff up and talking about what's going on. You got to go back to antiquity. Go back to the people who didn't have any light pollution, the people who trained their children to be seers and to communicate, and they went through school and training. And yeah, we're going through that too. That hasn't stopped. But we got to go back and pay homage to the people who started this. So when it comes to Sirius, I would want to go and research the Dogon tribe, who would tell you stories that their people came from that star system. So yeah, do the research on that. That's just me. You guys know I like to go back. I like to pay homage and go back to the first mentions of this stuff and where it came from. Joshua Benjamin says the Shepherd star is known as the point star Gamma Cephei in the constellation Cephas, the King constellation. Awesome. I'm sure it was the Star of Bethlehem, right? The kings that actually showed up. A lot of people thought that in ufology, especially me, because like early on, I wanted ufology to be real. I was having so many encounters with UFOs and divine beings and stuff like that I thought that every light in the sky or these analogies were UFOs. And so people would think that the Star of Bethlehem was really a UFO that they followed, and probably ancient aliens didn't help with that theory either. But I think I thought that at some point early on, until I ended up, finding the work of Jordan Maxwell and the work of Santos Bonacci, who can show you and talk about astrotheology and how the Bible is about astrology and how much it has to do with it. So that's a big part of it. The astrotheology with it. Fine Penguin says, well, let me see, I think it dropped down. Adam says, some say that the star could be each person's soul. When you look at the stars, you could be looking at your very soul. Very, very much sure. Could be true. There's interesting videos of like, what do they call them? They don't call them, like, especially in Mexican culture, they're not called UFOs. They call them, what is it, OVOs or somebody help me out in the comment section, OVOs or something like that. But there's some interesting footage of like in outer space of lights and of stars that are moving and are conscious and are moving around and stuff. And so a lot of stuff that you can't even see with your naked eye, but they're this film from outer space, and there's so much stuff moving around, and it seems like it could be ice particles or space debris. But as you look at some footage, it's like, hold on, these things are intelligent, and they're just lights. They're lights, and their plasma and their shapes and colors, and they're changing, and it's all of the stuff moving around in outer space. And so when it comes to the heavens, like, you can't go up there like you are. Like, you die. You're made for Earth. You know, we can't take our bodies to certain, you know, we can't travel at the speed of light. We'll deteriorate. We'll be destroyed by fire, right? But the scripture talks about how these beings are made out of the fire of God, and how they're made out of light. And that's how they can travel at the speed of light, and how they can come from the heavens into earth and appear as a man and shapeshift and take a body. But as they travel the heavens in the multiverse, they don't have physical bodies. They're light, their energy, their information even, that has the ability to shape and to morph here on the earth as men. And so, listen, the book of Enoch speaks on that. And some people throw the book of Enoch out and they're like, well, it's not really a biblical book. Listen, Psalms talks about it. It reiterates that. The book of Hebrews even requotes that scripture, that God makes his messengers as angels of light, ministers of righteousness. His messenger angels are made out of fire. The word seraphim means the fiery ones, the fiery serpents. Serpents is the nakash, and it deals with carrying and the keepers of informations, these angels who are the keepers of God's secrets. So as you catch them and as you behold them, they're revealing the knowledge of God, the seraphim. And so if that's a beautiful exchange, that's one thing. But a lot of people would try to get into capturing a jinn and capturing a demon or capturing an angel to extract information out of them and life force out of them. That's when you get into black magic and dark magic. But when you're stargazing and you're asking, you know, and there's no like, hey, give me some blood, or hey, do this, like, come on. Those are the most beautiful and innocent experiences that are out there. So we have the ability to do that for sure. Gonna keep reading questions here. There's just a lot of comments about stuff. Dylan says, I love your commercials. Thank you, Dylan. I love you, brother. Let's see. Many friends unaware. Sonic Tapestry says that part was great for sure. So inspirational. Let's see. Dylan says, is Anunnaki and Pleiades related? The idea with the Anunnaki is that they're these gods almost, where they want to be worshipped, and they created humans to be a slave race. That's their big thing. Interestingly enough, when it comes to Anunnaki and some of the scripts that talk about them in the Sumerian text, they talk about this prime creator, that there is a god that's above them. So people say that, you know, the Anunnaki are your gods or whatever, and the Anunnaki are, or what are talked about in the Bible when you hear Yahweh, you know, different theories or whatever. But they speak of even a higher force and a higher power. I'm not real big on the Anunnaki theory, because I believe that the work of Sitchin and the work of Dr. Michael Heiser meet somewhere in the middle. So, you know, my thoughts on them, if they are creators that create beings to be a slave race, to mine gold for their ships or whatever the theory is, my understanding is what I call the Elohim, or the El, which are the benevolent entities that you know could have created or seeded mankind here on the behalf of the Creator, on the behalf of Yahweh, who brought mankind here, or have tampered with mankind as well. So that's one of the theories there. But from my contact and from my experiences, I don't think that they're Anunnaki. We're dealing with the Elo, or the Elohim, and the green light beings, and that which is benevolent, that which is watching over humanity, that has our greatest good in mind. But they also protect free will, you know, in our evolution as a species, for all of us to ascend. So I think that is the goal of humanity. The goal of mankind is to ascend and to reach, to take our place amongst the stars. But we're evil. We have light and dark within us, and we have to, what many people say, become at least 51% good. We have to have more good in us than we do evil. And that is what awakening is about. That is what ascension is about. That's what spirituality is about ascending to take our place amongst the stars so you can be trusted. We can't be trusted. You know, we are a threat. There's, you know, our government is a threat. They have been making pacts with the lower level entities. And if UFOs, you know, we have less UFO sightings now with benevolent entities because our government tries to shoot them out of the sky. They're at war with them. So we talk about a war between these two star systems. I really don't have much belief into that, because there's a level of spirituality. There's a level of there's a council of what goes on out there, and you have to take your place amongst the stars, and no evil beings, you get kicked out. That's what the whole thing about, you know, the whatever was a war in heaven about fallen angels. You have to understand, again, that word sky and the word heaven is the same thing. Satan and his angels were banished, were kicked out of the heavens for trying to start a rebellion. You're kicked out of here. And they fell to earth. Behold, I saw Satan fall like lightning to the earth. Even with that, I did even the theories of that when you see lightning storms, that beings are falling to the earth. You know, but Satan and his angels fell. They were kicked out of heaven. So no, Christians, they didn't find a way to make ships and go back into heaven and fly around the heavens, which is the sky. There's demons aren't in ships flying around the heavens with bodies abducting people. They're not. Do they pop up in your room? Can they vibrate matter and show themselves to you? For sure. Are they able to deal with the smallest part of a particle and reveal themselves to you as a shadow of something moving, as entities? For sure. They move in fear to scare you. They feed off of that fear, that fallen lower nature energy, for sure. Whether it's the fallen angels or the spirits of the Nephilim that are here, which are the children with mankind and the fallen angels as well. But understand that there is a code of ethics. There's a code of conduct, that there is a righteous order in the spirit world here on earth, for sure. Even with the lower level beings, because the Creator has the ability to wipe them out like that. Hold on. I got a purpose for you. What happened whenever they cast the demons out of the demoniac men? When Jesus did that, cast out the demons, and it said, please don't torture us. Don't judge us before the appointed time. The Bible says that you'll judge angels. Which ones? The angels that fell. You're going to be over judging them. So they were kicked out of heaven, but there's a purpose for them. Please don't cast us into the abyss. Please don't judge us before our appointed time. Their judgment, which is one of the scariest judgments of all. It's not even a hellfire judgment. It is the judgment of not existing anymore. Please don't cast us into oblivion. Okay, I won't. I'm going to cast you into those pigs. Cast the demons into the pigs. The pigs go mad and they run into the water and drown the pigs. So there's a time of judgment and there's a purpose. So the fallen beings here have a purpose for humanity. Everything has a righteous order. My book, that's what it's about. The sovereignty of God, how all of these things coexist and work together to serve a greater purpose. Your initiation. I know how I'm going to use you guys. You guys are going to chastise people when they sin. When people get on drugs and they go into bars and they're married and they try to flirt with other women, I'm going to assign you to them. I want you to torment their conscience. When they go to sleep, when they lay their head on their pillow, I want you to remind them of their things until they repent. I want you to torment their conscience until they repent, until they confess. Listen, everything has a purpose. And we can go back throughout the scriptures. My book shows you obscure Bible verses that many people never read about God using evil angels and evil spirits. They serve a purpose. Everything does. Every person, every situation in your life, every scenario, everything has a purpose. You got to know that. Everything works together for the good of those who love God. For your good. What seemed like something that was against you, that was going to take you out, it's a learning experience if you learn from it. if you learn from it. If you don't, you'll keep taking that same test over and over until your grave. But you're supposed to learn from the experiences. Learn from the experiences of those around you. Touch the fire. It's hot. Ooh, I'm not touching that again. What about the people who don't have the cognitive skills and they keep touching the fire? There's a beautiful song by the band Thrice. It's called Black Honey, by the band Thrice. I urge you guys to listen to that song. It's about a person, it's about a boy who, it's an analogy about somebody who wants honey so bad that they keep going to the beehive. And every time they go to the beehive, they get stung. And they keep doing these things and chasing their tails and ending up in the same place, because they haven't learned the lessons. You want the honey so bad, you want the sin, you want that shiny thing so bad that you're willing to do anything for it. Hence, selling your soul and making pacts with the fallen ones. Everything that you do has a meaning. It has a ripple effect in eternity. Everything that you do, every thought that you think, every word that you speak, you will give an account for. Not when you die and see God in eternity, but on this earth, on this planet, when you pass into eternity. Don't think of it that way. Bring it into the now. When you speak evil on someone, know that there's someone out there speaking evil on you. When you help someone, know that God in the universe looses somebody in your timeline to help you. When you sow into somebody's life when they're down, know that whatever you shall sow, that you shall also reap. Nothing more or nothing less. Once you understand universal law, then you begin to be able to operate in it and make your own rules. So that being said, yes, there's a code of conduct. There's galactic federations, as some would call it. There's a hierarchy of beings that know their place. The idea of Satan that wants to overthrow God, the creator. No, in an instant, you don't exist anymore, Satan. You don't exist. Here's your role. Deal with humanity. Go back and forth throughout the earth, seeing who you can tempt. Ask my permission, but do your role. This is what you're going to be doing on the earth for so many years. Everything has a position. And so I don't think it's even that, we have a lot of friends who try to go into the spirit realm and try to redeem aliens, and they try to go preach the gospel to aliens and Jesus died for you, and have them, accept the Lord Jesus Christ and be born again. Like, no, they have an instance. Like, what if you converted all the demons, again, that tormented people when they lie, that eat at your conscience when you lie, that remind you that you're a liar and that you need to clear things up. When you steal, when you commit any sin, there's spirits that are loosed. Pride cometh before a fall. And such was the pride of the deceiver. What if they didn't exist anymore? You can lie and be okay with it. You can lie and they have no access to you. Why would you convert all of those beings? That's not how it works. Everything serves a purpose. So now when you're enlightened, when you've received the gift of the Holy Spirit, He works with your conscience. And you're able to learn. You're able to evolve. You're able to ascend. That's how this thing works. Keep making the good choices. Keep doing that which is good. Keep helping people. Keep serving others. Keep blessing people. Keep blessing your enemies. It ends up coming back to pay you off in the end. Spirit realm, angels, demons, spirits, and the sovereignty of God. How they all work together and they all coexist. Just like in a company, just like in a business, just like in a ministry. Everyone has a purpose. We don't function. There is no balance without these other people. Like the people on the other, like on the left and the right, it brings balance. There's a balance in the middle. It's not to be too much over here. It's not to be too much over there, but to walk the highway of holiness, which is the narrow gate that we must enter through. That is a place of balance. That is a place of understanding that God, the universe, operates in both. There's laws in place. And just because you're a Christian, just because there's still consequences, there's still recompense. You have to learn. You can ask for forgiveness, yeah, but true repentance is not asking for repentance. True repentance is turning away from the things that are killing you, the things that are killing others. And so us as humanity, we have to repent. We have to turn back to our Creator. We have to honor the planet. We have to honor the spirits. And what we've learned of anything, even as a culture of honor, how that even sets people free, sets the captives free, to honor people. Honor people. And at this point, years removed, not going through it, to honor your demons, to remember them, to be thankful for what they did. Not to worship them, not to make an altar, not to wear a necklace, but to remember. But more so, remembering who they came from, who they got permission and authority from. Who? The author and finisher and perfecter of your faith. The one who writes your story. Where? In the stars. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end this episode. Thank you guys for hanging out. Enjoyed the conversation. Enjoyed the camaraderie. Enjoy seeing my tribe, my people show up. I love you guys. If you need me, you know where to find me. There's a Discord link in the description. My social medias and Instagram, wherever you want to catch me at. I'm on all of them. Just hit me up. I'd love to connect with you. We are powered by Patreon and our supporters and partners, man. Thank you guys for believing in the work. Everybody who's been supporting since day one. One of the cool things is that those people who have been here for probably the last month or so, your names are in the new album, White Magic, that's about to drop. Everybody who supports on Patreon, one thing that I do, another perk, is I get all their names. And when you open up to the thank you section, listen, I'm not thanking my producers. I am the producer. I'm not thanking the writers. I'm not thanking the engineers. I'm thanking the people who made it possible, which are the Patreon supporters, which are my partners who believe in the work that I'm doing. If nobody believes in it, it just would have been done a long time ago. I was going to give up in 2015, 2014. I just felt like giving up. Wasn't going to create any more music. And people were like, oh, you're just joking, man. But I was serious. I was done. I was like, I ain't doing music no more, man. It doesn't pay off. We're struggling to get heard and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I had a little audience. But I said, you know what? Let me try something. And I started a GoFundMe. I said, listen, if people want another album, they'll help pay for it because the finances aren't there to do it, to get features, to buy beats, to all that kind of stuff. Let me just do the GoFundMe, put it out there. This is what I'm asking. And I was asking $2,000 to help with artwork, to hire people, you know, to do that. And I didn't think anybody was going to give. You know, I think that people would make fun of me, and, you know, just like the ego makes fun of me. Oh, don't do it. Don't put it out there. Nobody's going to give, all that kind of stuff. But I put it out there. I did the GoFundMe, and people started to donate. People started to give. And I got to see that people wanted this new album. People wanted new music from TruthSeekah. And because of that, 333 was birthed. I was able to produce the album 333 because I seen people come out of the woodwork and people who wanted to support. And that really changed everything for me. But I don't know what's going on with my video here. It won't let me select the zoom again, but yeah. Anyway, I was about to end anyway. With that being said, peace and shalom. Thank you guys for the support. And I try to make it worth your while over there on Patreon. You get access to so much stuff, and just let me know whatever it is that you guys want and want access to, and how ways that I can make it more creative. And listen, we have a weekly hangout. It's called the School of the Mystics. We got that going on. I lead a breathwork class every Sunday morning called the Children of the Breath. And you get all my music, and listen, you get my meditations at a certain level. Listen, everything I bring to the table, just to say that, listen, I appreciate your work. I thank you that I want to join with you in what you're doing. And it means the world. So thank you to everybody who's been supporting, and be looking for your name in the new album that's going to be shipped really soon. Tomorrow's the last day to order. September the 29th is going to be the last day to order. I got to put my order in for the pre-orders to get the autographed copy, the sticker bundle, and the early digital download. At cutoff time, everybody who has pre-ordered, it's only $19. Everybody who has pre-ordered are going to get the digital copy, and then you're going to get your bundle in the mail as well. So for those of you who are listening to me now, live stream, you'll be able to do that. And the physical copies will still be available, but they won't be signed. So make sure you take advantage of that. We also have retreats and things like that coming up. Myself and Illuminati Congo, I'm super stoked for that retreat. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to be taking part in a retreat in Orlando, Florida in like 8 days. I'm going to be there with Dan Oskopinski for his birthday bash, and it's like 3 nights or 4 nights of just tapping into the spirit. And he's calling it the inner course, man, where we just get to go within and get to connect with community. And I'm really looking forward to that. So I know there's a lot of people listening who are going to be there as well. I've seen Andrew Melrose commenting here a while ago. I know he's going to be there. But a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Get plugged in. With that, I'll say peace and shalom. Love you guys. We'll do it again very soon. Peace, peace.
Your way is so much higher than mine. So much higher than mine. So much deeper than mine. So much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the TruthSeekah Podcast, head over to TruthSeekah.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/TruthSeekah.